Thanks for joining us this month on Social Security. And I think this is kind of an interesting topic because instead of it just being kind of basic, it's those unique situations, I think, that kind of capture our attention.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me, and I hope that everyone will take away something from this presentation that they'll be able to use at some point in the future. Just as a point of clarification, and I didn't share this with Eric, so he wouldn't have known, but that very long company name that he gave you, SMD Tax and Divorce, that has recently been changed. So I'm now just Susan Moussi, CPA Inc. Took some time to get that changed with the IRS, but obviously the firm name represented the services I was offering up to about 2 years ago. And so I've kind of pivoted and no longer offer that divorce part of it. But so good news is my firm name is shorter than it used to be. So, but I remain a CPA, have been a CPA since 1990. And this last fall, I was certified as a National Social Security Advisor. And I'm here today to kind of talk to you about some of the complexities of the Social Security system, which also makes it very unique.
Yeah.
So I always like to start off just kind of giving you a heads up on what we're going to be talking about, what I'm going to be presenting you on. So I do want to cover some basics because I don't want to make the assumption that everyone knows how some of these things are done, and then we'll get into those unique situations. I do, however, have a disclaimer, and basically what I want you to know is that the Social Security system is a very complex system, and I don't want you to leave this presentation thinking that you perhaps have an answer to your particular situation. You'll really want to make sure that you either get advice from an agent with the Social Security office, or someone like myself, someone who's been trained in Social Security matters. So we'll go over some basics, like I said, and then some unique situations. So as far as starting off on the basics, it's just really about who is entitled to benefits off of your worker, your record. You are the worker, okay? And you're eligible for retirement benefits once you get your 40 quarters, which is generally 10 years of working. You earn a one credit per quarter in a year, as long as you have earnings at a certain minimum level, which is fairly low, so it's not hard to do. But you become fully insured once you get 40 credits. And once you're fully insured, then there are a number of beneficiaries who might be entitled to benefits from your work record. And that would include a spouse, an ex-spouse, children, and sometimes even parents if they were dependent upon you. So those are the basics as to who might be eligible for benefits based on your earnings record. So I thought it would be helpful also to look at how your Social Security benefits are determined. The Social Security Administration is going to express things as your primary insurance amount, PIA, and that will determine your retirement benefits at your full retirement age and any other beneficiary, like a spousal benefit. This PIA amount is very critical in looking at what someone might be entitled to. So when you turn 62, the year that you turn 62, Social Security has a history of all of your earnings. I mean, even your earnings during your teenage years. And so one, it's always important to make sure that Social Security has your correct earnings. And they're going to index those earnings when you're age 62. And for each year that someone turns 62, there's a different set of indexing factors. But what these indexing factors do is they basically bring those historical years more in line with today's values. And I've got an illustration. You're going to see how that works. So that's going to happen when you're age 62, and that indexing factor is set for life. That is not going to change during the rest of your time before you start to draw benefits, or I should actually say while you're working. And that indexing is going to happen again on all those wages you've earned up until your 59th year. So in the year that you turn 59, the wages you had in that year are the final wages that get indexed. After that, it's always going to be just whatever you earn. They're not going to be indexed for any type of inflation. Then they're going to take the highest 35 of those years. So if you worked 40 years, if you have 40 years of earnings, it's going to be the highest 35 of those indexed years. And that is going to result in a monthly figure called an AIME, A-I-M-E, which stands for Average Indexed Monthly Earnings. And that's where this PIA starts to be calculated. So they're going to take that monthly earning, and they're going to apply, they're going to apply these, oops, sorry, people. Wanted to use my pointer. Okay. So this is the calculation for the PIA. And again, they're called bend points. And this too is locked in place at age 62. These dollar amounts, so what this is basically saying is, of that monthly amount that was calculated here when they index your earnings, to come to this primary insurance amount, the PIA, they're going to take the first $1,174 of that and multiply that by 90%. And I've given you here what the amount was last year in 2023, just to kind of show you that the bend points change over time. But once it's set in place at age 62, that's going to be your bend point. That doesn't change. So the monthly amount goes through this calculation, and that comes up with your total of your PIA. And once you stop working, or I'm sorry, as you continue to keep working, it is going to be recalculated annually. So while your highest 35 years may change over time, because maybe now you're making more money than the indexed earnings from some time ago. So those years will get replaced. A new set of highest 35 will create a new AIME, but the bend points will stay the same. And there's no further indexing of your wages after age 59. Well, if you were not working anymore after age 62, but you weren't drawing, your PIA is going to increase by COLA. So from that point forward, every time they announce what the COLA adjustment is for Social Security, that increase is also applied to your primary insurance amount before you start collecting, starting at age 62. But it doesn't end there as far as what your monthly benefit is going to be when you start drawing Social Security, because the PIA is for when you reach full retirement age, and that can be anywhere between 66 and 67, just depends on the year that you were born. But if you start early, before that full retirement age, which is what FRA stands for, that PIA will be reduced. If you have also a government pension, PIA could be reduced. And if you are working and you started your benefits before you reached your full retirement age, the PIA can be reduced. And again, I've got some illustrations here as to how that looks.
It's much more complicated, I think, than people think it is. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And that's why, my disclaimer at the beginning was, it's really not possible, I think, to walk away from this presentation thinking that you know exactly the answer, because there are always exceptions to the rule as well.
Yep.
In case you didn't know, you can apply so when you apply for benefits, they're going to ask you what your start date is. And if you're beyond age 62, by 6 or 7 months, and you say, well, I want to start at age 62, but I'm just a little late in applying, you can get a 6-month retroactivity of your benefits. The only warning is if you're 66 and 7 months when you start that, your reduction in your benefit is less than if you start at 62. So by asking Social Security, yes, please pay me for the last 6 months, you are also taking a lifetime reduction that is appropriate for someone who started at age 62, even though you didn't start until a couple of months after that. And the other thing to keep in mind is you can always rescind your application, but you only have 12 months. And I think this is the important part. You have 12 months to change your mind, and you can change your mind. You do repay back all the benefits. And if anybody else started benefits because your benefits had started, their benefits are going to stop as well. So I think those are important things to consider as you think about your options. And you might say to yourself, well, I really want to stop for whatever reason, but if I do, maybe my spouse isn't going to get the spousal benefit, or maybe a child. So that is important to know about, changing your mind, rescinding benefits. And if you don't already have one set up, the Social Security does advise you to set up your account with My Social Security. There are certain things that you can do, apply for online or make changes online. Other things do still require either so let's get into our unique situations. So I'm going to use Robin here for an example, and I didn't notice this until after my PowerPoint went out, but somehow PowerPoint thought when I put in that her birthday was June 1, they translated that into being January 6. So they're on the European system for for dating things. But so the example we're going to go over is Robin, who was born in 1962. So she's going to be 62 years of age this year in 2024. And Robin made a career change here in about 2005, and we're going to go over what impact all of that has had for Robin. So I know there's a lot on this screen, but it's really a challenge to be able to give you all the information that I think is important without having this monstrous spreadsheet. But I'm going to point out the important pieces. So if you recall, so this is the year Robin turned 62. The indexing. So for those that turned 62 in 2024, they're going to use this 2021 index. And that index is being applied here to all of the wages that are on Robin's record. And this column here is basically to say, there are maximum amounts that you are subject to Social Security. So you, like for example, here in 1997, Robin earned $100,000 that year, but only $65,400 was subject to Social Security. So the indexing is only going to be applied to the $65,400, not the $100,000. So you can see here what this indexing does. I mean, in 1983, when Robin earned $25,000 and all of that was subject to Social Security tax, in today's dollars, that brings it up to $104,656. So you compare that to Robin taking a change in her career, and there are periods here, where in her new career, she is, because there's no indexing, these current years don't even count. I mean, if these years even counted in her highest 35, which they don't, and that's what these ones over here are to do, is to track which years are going to be the years that count in the highest 35. So none of these early years, none of these in the 80s, early 80s will be used in the calculation of her Social Security benefit. Here she does this career change. So with the indexing, You can see that her wages, even though she earned 80,000 back in 2005, her indexed wage of 138 is more than what she is currently making. So it's counting as part of her high 35. And these last year, so here, this blue line here, this is the year she turns 59. So this is the last year of the indexing. So her $97,000 of wages translates into about $102,000. And then after that, it's just simply going to be whatever she's earning those years. As you can see, there are zeros next to those years, 2021 through 2024, because none of those years of earnings fit into that high 35. We've got anywhere from, I think this is the low, from 110.93 and then up from there. So these are all below that lowest of the high of the 35. So those are all, there's a total of all those 35 years. And then this is that AMI, that average indexed monthly earnings, that then goes into that PIA calculation. So the point of this illustration is really to sort of for you to ask yourself, if I'm continuing to work merely to increase my benefits, are you really achieving what your goal is? If you're still working and you don't, and you need the money, or you want the money, or you want to work, then obviously that's a whole different set of goals. But if the goal is to increase Social Security benefits, you really probably would do yourself a favor by going to that Social Security online calculator and entering they've got a calculator, so you don't even have to have an account, and you enter your historical earnings and when you were and your date of birth, and start playing with, if I am making this or making that, what am I doing to my Social Security benefits? Because you may not be increasing your Social Security benefit, but you certainly are paying into the system still. You never stop paying into the system, even even as you're drawing benefits and as you've started benefits and maybe you're working, you're still paying into the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, so I thought another interesting area is about what they call the earnings test. So when you reach your full retirement age and you're working, you can make as much as you want and you're not going to lose any benefits. It's those years leading up to your full retirement age where you have to be aware of what working does for you to your benefits if you were to start drawing benefits. Okay. So if you're not drawing benefits, this is, perhaps not a relevant subject for you. But let's just say for some reason, maybe you'll have a job loss and you start to draw benefits at age 62, and then find reemployment. Well, again, if you don't have that 12-month period where you can say, hey, I've changed my mind, I'll give you back your money, and let's just pretend this never happened. Your maximum earnings for that year are $22,320, and again, this is for 2024. So these are indexed. They changed every year. And in the year that you're reaching your full retirement age, that month up to the month before you start to draw benefits, if your earnings are over $59,520, again, that's going to have an impact to at least in that first year what your Social Security benefit will be for just that year. So again, why is that important? Well, I think it's important as far as timing. When do you quit work? What do you have in terms of earnings before you start to look to see, I'll just, arbitrarily just stop working right before, and then I start collecting the month that I turn full retirement age. So there can be an impact in that first year that you do reach your full retirement age. The good news, though, it's not permanently lost. Any month that you go without a benefit after you started your benefits, I won't say gets added back, but there is an adjustment to the reduction that you realized. And earnings tests not only apply to you as the worker, but also to the people who are drawing on your benefits. And I have some examples of that, and that might be more clear to you as when I show you an example. And earnings are only going to be what you make from a job or self-employment. It's not going to be your RMDs or your pension income, investment income, nothing like that. It's just if you're working and receiving payment for that. And this point here about it being the earnings that you have when they were earned and not received is important. And there's an example coming up here as to what that looks like. I can skip that. That's just about earnings before you turn, in the year that you turn full retirement age, as far as what you can do. But here in this example here, so this person was received a payment of $59,520 in January 2024. And that payment represented paid time off. They really retired at the end of December, but they still had money coming to them because they had some unpaid, unpaid time that they were getting paid for, paid time off, and maybe a bonus. The bonus was something that they earned in 2023, but it wasn't going to be paid out to them until 2024. That doesn't count as being part of the earnings test. You're still okay because it was the earnings had to do with the prior year. You did nothing in 2024 to earn that money. Unfortunately, though, when Social Security gets your W-2 next year, they're only going to know that they have a W-2 that shows that you earned $59,520, and they may contact you and say, we need to talk, you owe us some money because you exceeded the earnings limit, and you can easily take care of that. Well, if you can save your pay statement, that would show that January pay statement, that would show, you know, pay time off and what that dollar amount was and bonus and that it was for the year before. That will satisfy Social Security as to that not being current year earnings, but for your earnings of a prior year. So here in words, and then I have some examples, is something, you know, again, how it affects spouses. So a married couple, and in this illustration, the worker's benefit is $2,000 a month, and his spouse receives $1,000 a month as a spouse benefit. If she's getting $1,000 a month based on her own record, then this won't impact her. But in this situation, she didn't have enough credits to have her own Social Security retirement benefit, so she's getting 50% of her spouse's. So we've got the worker at $2,000, the spouse at $1,000. So they're collecting $3,000 in benefits. The worker went back and is earning $10,000 over the limit. So they're earning 32, they can only earn 22, and I'm rounding off obviously. So they're 10 over, and it's $2 for every 10. So they owe Social Security $5,000. How is Social Security going to get their $5,000? Well, they're going to withhold 2 months of benefits, so which will be 2 plus 1, 3. 2 months of that would be 6, right? Well, and then they'll start back up again. And then they'll get that $1,000 that was over withheld the following fall when Social Security verifies that, yes, indeed, we have a W-2 that shows 32 and nothing more than that. So there's a few months of missed payments, and then there's a catch up of the cash, if you will, in the following year. And then if you find yourself in a situation in which this earnings test is perhaps denying you some benefits for a few months or so, there is a special monthly benefits earnings test. You can only use it once. I'm only listing it here because you may need it, and it is available, but it's more complicated than than the annual earnings test. So I'm just going to spare you the details.
Well, that's good to know, though.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So here's an example then of Mary. And in the first column here, she's 62 years of age and her full retirement age is at 67. So that means that she's taking early retirement and she's 60 months early. And that's how the Social Security office looks at early retirement in terms of number of months from your full retirement age. So had she gone to age 67, her primary insurance amount, her PIA would have been $1,420, but because she's receiving it at age 62, it's going to be reduced by 70%. So that makes her new benefit, her monthly benefit amount, $994. And Mary decided to go back to work and she's going to earn 37. So that gives her excess earnings because she's not her full retirement age. So she's held to that that rough $22,000 figure. So she's over by the $14,680, and they're going to withhold $2 for every $1 that you're over. So if her benefit is $994 a month, and she owes them $7,340, they're going to withhold 8 months of benefit payments. So let's assume she starts them in January. So she'll go January through August without a payment, and then it'll start up again in September. But obviously, 994 times 8 is a little bit more than this 7,340. So again, that following fall, she'll get $612 back from Social Security once they've verified her earnings. The other adjustment, so she's going to get that cash adjustment. She went 8 months without earnings. Her original reduction was for having been starting her benefits 60 months early. They're going to now adjust that reduction and give her back 8 months. So now she's going to, when she turns full retirement age, and let's just assume nothing more happens between now and age 67, at age 67, they're now going to change that reduction factor to 52, which now means that she'll get 73.3% of her PIA for the rest of her life, basically. In the next column, let's just say Mary is drawing benefits at her full retirement age. Her PIA is $1,500 because she's collecting at her full retirement age. There's no reduction, so she gets $1,500. But she wants to keep working, and before she turns 67, she earned $62,000. After she turns 67, she can make millions of dollars. It won't matter. But up until she turned 67, she was limited to that $59,000. So they're going to withhold 1 month and then pay her back the following fall, the $673. And there's no adjustment to her reduction. She didn't have a reduction, so there's no adjustment. Okay, so that leaves us with talking about government pension and their impacts to Social Security. So here in the state of Ohio, and especially here in Columbus, we have a lot of people who work for the university or for the state government, and they may have also had time that they were also paying into Social Security as well. So this first unique situation under the government pensions is an offset called the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP. And this applies to those of you where you have both earnings that were subject to Social Security and your own earnings with a government entity in which you have a pension, your own pension. And earlier when I was showing you how your primary insurance amount was calculated, the very first bend point was this 90%. And when you're subject to this windfall elimination provision, that 90%, if you don't have 30 or more years of substantial earnings, you'll lose that. It gets reduced by 5% for each year that you're under 30. won't be it won't be reduced beyond 40%, and it also won't be reduced by more than 50% of your government pension. So if you worked mostly in, Social Security, but you then have a very small government pension, you're not going to then lose more than 50% of that government pension. So I do have an illustration of what that could look like. So here is somebody who had 22 years in, as far as what their years of earning subject to Social Security was. So they're going to go from 90% in that first bend point to 50%. So that, and everything else stays the same. So basically they have a reduction in their monthly benefit because they have a government pension of $3,000 of $470. So they are getting something. So under this WEP provision, you do get something. It's just not your PIA, and unless you had 30 years or more of substantial earnings. And if this pension's $3,000, so 50% is obviously, we're well within that limit. But if this government pension was $300 a month, then this wouldn't be reduced by any more than $150. That's how that works. The other offset for those with a government pension affects not the worker who has both benefits in Social Security and in the state government, but the spouses, divorced spouses, or survivors. So survivor benefits, this is also applies to those who are drawing survivor benefits. So if I am the survivor and if I had a spouse who had Social Security benefits and they have passed, but I spent my time in government work so that I have a government pension, I'm going to lose $2 for every $3 of my government pension. And I've got an illustration to just show you what those numbers look like. Under this program, you can actually wipe out your Social Security benefit as a spousal boost or as even a survivor. It could go to zero. Taking a lump sum, some people say, well, that's okay. I'll just take my government pension as a lump sum and roll it over into an IRA, and then Social Security won't know. Well, they're going to ask you, first of all, were you ever entitled to a government pension? You have to answer truthfully. And even though you took the lump sum, they will convert that into what a monthly amount would have been. So you're not going to save yourself the elimination by taking a lump sum. And all of this starts when the pension starts. So if you have a government pension that is sitting there and you start your Social Security benefits first, you don't have the offset applying until you start your government pension. And then it's up to you to contact Social Security, let them know that you have started it so that they can now recalculate your new benefit. And if you don't, you may find yourself in a situation of owing Social Security
a lot
of money, right?
Yeah.
So here's an illustration in terms of just dollars, what this government pension offset could look like. So, Robin's university pension of $3,500, her spouse died and she learned from Social Security she's entitled to, or eligible for, I should say, eligible for a $3,500 survivor benefit. Then they're going to learn that she's got her pension, so she's losing $2 for every $3 of her university pension. She gets nothing as a survivor, from Social Security as a survivor, because her pension offsets all of that. Had her pension been much lower, she would, be entitled to $1,800, because again, it's getting reduced by 2/3 of her pension. There's been over the years some attempt to make this go away, but so far that hasn't been successful.
And that's such a critical point, Susan. So when people are looking at making job changes, you really have to look at this area to say, which way is it going to be more beneficial for you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you're going to switch jobs. type of thing.
Yes, and especially when you go back and forth between, I know some people go back and forth between, you know, private industry and state
Like, yeah,
employment.
yeah,
I think another unique situation, but it's probably becoming less and less of a something that people are drawing on, are the spouse benefits. As more women, you know, traditionally back in the day, you know, women were staying at home more, so they may not have had their 40 hours or 40 credits, or because they had fewer years of earning or lower wages, their benefit was small enough that they would have what's called a spouse benefit. And I think where I think people get confused is the spouse benefit is added onto yours, and those two pieces together couldn't be more than 50% of your spouse's, the worker spouse's benefit. And I've got an illustration to show you just what those numbers look like. Here's a bunch of the eligibility that I won't necessarily go into, but I think some of the things that are kind of critical to know is that there's no point in, if you're eligible for spouse benefits, there's no point in putting it off beyond your full retirement age. You don't get that 8% increase on that benefit like you do on your own. So if you have, I'm sure you're all aware that, you know, if I get to age 67 and I decide not to start my benefits, I'm going to realize that basically an 8% increase in that benefit every year until I get to age 70. And after that, they don't give you an 8% increase. But that's not so with the spousal benefits. So there's no benefit in delaying. It's also, like I mentioned in the previous slide, subject to this government pension offset. So you might be entitled mathematically, but you know, then you take into consideration your own government pension, which might wipe it out. And the last point here is, it used to be that what would happen is that a spouse would say, okay, I'm going to apply for the spouse benefit only at my full retirement age. I don't want any reduction at all. And I'm going to wait until I start to draw on my own benefits. And you could do that because then you would let your own benefits grow by that 8% a year. But back in 2015, they did away with that option. And so for anyone born before 1/1/1954, that option is available to you. But for anyone born after that date, when you start your benefit, you have to take both your own and the spousal. You can't separate them. So here are just 3 examples of what this spouse benefit could look like. Again, if Robin is the higher wage earner and Robin's married to Sam, half of hers is 1822. Sam's on his own is 1824. Sam doesn't get a boost. Because again, it's limited to no more than 50% of Robin's. Okay, so that's where I'm saying this is probably not going to be something that the Social Security is going to be paying out a lot of as far as spousal benefits. If Sam's own benefit was $1,000 a month, then he'd get $822 of the spousal benefit because it totals to no more than 50% of Robin's. And in this example, I'm basically showing you the reduction to each piece, because if Sam decides, I'm not going to wait till my full retirement age, I'm going to start early. Even though the months are the same because he's starting both his own benefit and his spouse benefit at the same time, they do have different percentages that apply to your own retirement benefits. That would be for 34 months, the reduction factor. And this is the reduction factor on a spousal benefit. So you get less as a spouse for retiring at the same age. So that's how that works.
Yeah.
And lastly, we have our survivor benefits. Again, here are all the various ways you might be eligible for it. But again, I think the most important point here is you get, so in that other example, well, I think I have it coming up. So you get one or the other. If you're already drawing your Social Security benefits and your spouse dies or an ex-spouse dies, You don't get survivor benefits on top of your own benefit. You get the higher of either your benefit or the spouse benefit. But unlike that spouse benefit where you could do them at different times, you can do survivor benefits at a different time that you do your own benefits. So what might happen is your spouse dies, and you think, well, I'll go ahead and start mine now because I need the cash flow. I know there's going to be a reduction, but when I get to my full retirement age, I'll start my survivor benefits and I won't lose it. It won't be subject to any reduction because I haven't quite met my full retirement age. And here's kind of how that looks. So Robin's survivor benefit, Sam's survivor benefit is he learns that it's $3,644. His own benefit was $1,824. Again, he's not getting those two added together. He's only getting the survivor benefit because it's the higher of the two. And in this illustration, he decides he wants to start his survivor benefits early, and he's going to be subject to a reduction of that survivor benefit by 89% for being 30 months early. And the important thing here too is to know, and there is a chart, what the age at which you're considered fully retired for your retirement benefit isn't necessarily the age at which you're considered fully your full retirement age for survivor benefits. So in this example, Sam, while he has to be 66 in 10 months to be considered at full retirement age for his own benefits, for survivor benefit born when he's born, it's 66 plus 6 months. So not a big difference, but it is different. And I think that's the important thing.
4 months earlier.
Yeah. So that is all that I have. I mean, I do encourage you to be proactive. Social Security is not going to reach out to you when things change in your life. You need to let them know when change has occurred, and you have to be proactive actually in applying. There's nothing automatic about getting benefits. The only benefit that might be automatic, but I wouldn't count on it, is if you're drawing benefits and your spouse is drawing benefits and that spouse dies, you would think that you're going to get, contacted by Social Security about being eligible for survivor benefits, but I wouldn't wait to hear from them. I would be reaching out to them. So that concludes my presentation. I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. Great, Susan. Thanks so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah.